Despite the poor light, I could make out a few old armchairs and a long, battered, stained divan which Taylor gestured for me to sit on. He immediately squeezed himself down right next to me, practically foaming at the mouth. He said,
"Terence said you was good looking, and he wasn't wrong. You know, you could make yourself lots of money if you cared to."
I said that I did. "If any old gentleman with money takes a fancy to me," I said, "I shan't mind. I'm terribly hard up." At this, he arched an eyebrow. "The extra money will come in most welcome, Mr. Taylor, sir," I explained.
Extra money? No, dearie, you misunderstand me. You'll live here and work here with me and the girls. No more running the grams for you, my fine Ganymede. You're far too grand for that.
Well, I'd never considered I had any particular value, so this was news to me. And so, while I knew it would break me ma's heart to see me leave, although she'd be grateful for one less mouth to fill, all the same, I also knew I'd be able to earn much more working for Taylor than I would running Grams. I'd have much more fun too. The situation with my father made living at home hell, so it didn't take much reflection before I agreed. Besides, having worked the West End enough times to know it felt like the centre of the universe, I liked the idea of living near there. Liked it a lot. Taylor pushed ever so close to me and said in that hissy way he has of speaking,
"Young man, oaring is a calling, a talent, an art of the highest order. There's a fine tradition to be upheld in the giving of pleasure for money. A fine tradition. It's not called the oldest profession for nothing."
and he licked his lips and grinned before continuing.
Thankfully, this knowledge has been passed down from cock to mouth for generations. But only the chosen few have been bestowed with the knowledge of this esoteric and erotic art. These keepers of the flames are amongst the most talented givers of pleasure the world has ever known, the most gifted of ours. In this house, this temple, you shall, in time, join their number and become one of the anointed. You shall know the power. You shall know it well.
He suddenly clutched together the folds of his kimono, which had fallen open to reveal his pale white chest, where the pyjamas were unbuttoned underneath. I could hear laughter coming from the kitchen where Terence and the other boys were.
"Yeah, forget this at your peril,"
he said, tapping a bony fingertip on my sternum.
"There are those in this world who'll condemn you as fiercely as they condemn their own bodies for what you do. There are those that will tell you that pleasure is bad and that giving it for money is the work of the devil himself. But know that they are fools. And no sane man listens to a fool. There are those who believe that only pain can give pleasure, and indeed, ain't a good deal of them the very swells you'll be servicing, giving them a fair crack of the whip for the pure hell of it. Be sure, they are worse than the fools. They are hypocrites, and you'll come to recognise them soon enough, for aren't they running the country? The most of them. And doesn't each and every one of them pass through that door? Or one as like it as to make no difference? At some time or other in their miserable, Janus-faced lives.
He stared at me with his eyes wide, and I was unsure for a minute whether or not he was waiting for me to answer. But he'd only paused to inhale enough breath to fuel the next onslaught. I'd never known anyone talk so much. Not even Pa and his cups went on so.
These fools preach not what they practice,
He said.
and they must be held by each and every hour in the greatest contempt. For the fools and the hypocrites know nothing of joy, and would you know nothing of it too? They have the body for a dirty thing, an animal thing, and place it second to the soul or mind or whatever else they call it.
His finger pointed at the window, as if he spoke of where we stood, behind the closed curtains.
They find the body ugly and its parts despicable. They curse the body and wish it dead. For only in death, or so they claim, can the spirit live in all its purity. What bollocks. And they spread this, and they will try all they can to spread it upon you, young man. And make no mistake. But don't you listen to a word they say, for whatever they say, they are doing the opposite themselves. You know they are. You know it better than most. You know that they are not to be listened to, only laughed at, exposed and ignored. The establishment, for it is they that I talk of, will use us, will use you. It often seems to suit them, but it is for no one to know but themselves.
He placed a hand on my knee.
A whore's life is no easy thing, and it's not to be embarked upon lightly.
He moved in closer, narrowing his eyes to slits like sly cats, and said,
But they are all wrong, see? They are all so wrong. And their mistake is your reward.
He rubbed his hand against my thigh.
Because pleasure is the greatest gift God gave you, so it is. Pleasure is divine. To give pleasure is to spread joy. And to spread joy is godly. Isn't that the truth? Now, aren't we doing God's work right here? Aren't we spreading joy? I think you'll find we are. Just look at the smiles on the faces of those what leave.
He grinned, revealing yellow, crooked teeth.
In here, you'll learn the ancient knowledge of oarcraft. The art of giving pleasure will be yours. Didn't the Ore of Babylon alone leave enough volumes to keep you busy in your studies for years? Not to mention Nell Gwynn or Lucretia Borgia, and that Emma Hamilton passed on a trick or two. The boys may be less famous, but they are there if you care to look. Sporus, the beautiful slave boy who was castrated and dressed as a woman in order to marry Nero, what he didn't know about sucking cock isn't worth knowing. Believe you me. Why do you think Nero wanted to marry him so desperately that he chopped off the poor boy's knackers to make him resemble a girl? And those lovely boys that serve as King James I, they have passed on their wisdom too. How to make a man feel like a king or even a queen, if needs must. And it can be yours. That knowledge, all yours.